Welcome to the Basketball and Brew podcast, produced by June McLaren, and I'm your host, Dan Miller. I'd like to start by thanking our sponsors, both right here in beautiful San Marcos. Pie Society is an excellent stop, great New York-style pizzas, drinks, and a great vibe. Also, when you're in San Marcos, come to Zellick's Ice House. Outside patio, a lot of drink specials, fun vibes, great atmosphere at Zellick's Ice House. Tonight on the podcast, we're honored to have Texas State head men's basketball coach Terrence Johnson join the podcast. Coach Johnson has been the head men's basketball coach at Texas State the past 2 seasons and guided the Bobcats to back-to-back Sun Belt regular season conference championships. He's the fastest coach at Texas State to 39 career wins in over 40-some years. He led the team to their first ever trip to the NIT, and in both seasons has been the Sun Belt Coach of the Year. Coach Johnson, thank you for coming on, and welcome to the Basketball and Brew podcast.
And thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Coach, I'm excited to talk to you tonight and dive into your defense and your style of play and how you win games. Before we do that, I wanted to talk to you about relationships. One thing I've noticed being here in San Marcos and watching your program all year is you seem to have great relationships, obviously, with your team, with your staff. It seems like a relationship-driven program. Can you talk to me about how you build relationships within your program?
Yeah, I guess it starts from the old adage. You know, my grandmother always taught me to treat people the way I want to be treated. You know, I think that there's no job too big or too small for me. And the first one is just trying to make people feel like they're important. I would always, growing up, I would always speak to everyone that I saw, say hello, good morning, good evening, and there's a person that one day I guess it was telling a story, and it said, do you really want to know how I'm doing? A lot of people say, man, how are you doing? And he said that, man, most people who say that, if 10 people ask you how you doing, so it's maybe only one of them that's going to stick around to hear how you're really doing. And I always wondered, I said, man, when most people, if you ask 10 people, they'll say, doing fine, doing fine. And that's really not true. Most people, 8 out of 10 people are dealing with something that they, that's probably one of the hardest things they've ever had to deal with in their lives. So, what I try to do is, man, I just try to make everybody feel important because you never know how that interaction might help those people deal with
Right.
that. So that's how we start this thing off, not just in the program, but just as a person waking up every morning in my approach. And the program is kind of easy because um, it's not something that you turn off and turn on. You practice that every single day, and it's easy when you get around young men. You treat them like young men, and when you get around the staff, you put them in positions where they can be successful and where they can experience some level of autonomy, where they're running their own like mini aspect of the program.
Mhm.
So it's been probably the best part of the job is building relationships, nurturing those relationships. I think that that's really important.
Right.
Years ago, I used to always collect cards and collect cards, collect cards, collect cards. And then I realized that, man, I really don't know those people at all. So I stopped collecting cards and I started recruiting mentors
Mm.
and recruiting people that I wanted to associate myself with.
Right.
And I would find out when their birthdays were, how many kids they had. I can store something in my phone right now. So, like if I go, let's just say I go to Alvin Brooks, whom I've been knowing for a very long time.
Hmm.
You'll see, I don't know if you can see this, it'll say wife Tiffany, and it'll
Hmm.
tell you how many kids he has and all of that kind of stuff. So it'll say wife Tiffany, 2 boys, AJ Austin, father Alvin Brooks Jr., first black head coach of any sport at University of Houston, uh, Lamar Hall of Fame. I got his
Yeah.
information,
Yeah.
dad's information.
Love it.
So that's the kind of stuff that I did
Yep.
when I was an assistant.
Yep.
So I recruited the people I wanted to be around.
Right. Right. Oh, that's great stuff, Coach. And I noticed that just being here in San Marcos, how you treat us at the high school, but then also when I went to watch your practice, one thing that stood out to me, I saw a little box in your locker room, and it had cards that you could leave something positive for another teammate. So when they're having a maybe not the best day, they could pick that up and just read a card from another teammate. How do you come up with ideas and things like that? Because I know you have a lot of them within your program. Is it reading books? Is it just your ideas, or that was a great thing I saw?
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you. Some of it is just talking with other coaches,
Hmm.
like Coach Alvin Brooks over there at Lamar, AB3 at Baylor, Jerome Tang,
Hmm.
Amir over there at Kennesaw State. Coach Broussard at TCU. I talk with
Hmm.
these guys a lot and get a lot, and we share ideas all the time. Um, the other one is because I've been those people,
Hmm.
that needed somebody to encourage me, speak life into me, and get me going on certain days, and pick me up when I fall.
Right.
So I tend to look for things that I was missing, or things that helped me find myself throughout my journey, and then I try to put those things in place for these young men, so that they can find that stuff valuable, and utilize it as they go through their journey.
Right. I love that, Coach. And in a time too where mental health is a real thing to talk about and discuss, I know that that's important to you on your mind, and you always have the pulse of your players in mind. And if they have any situations or something, I think they feel comfortable. They can come to you as a head coach.
Yeah, that's what we try to do. We try
Hmm.
to make ourselves available. A lot of times when anybody is dealing with something mental health wise, the one in my opinion, one of the things that is consistent across the board is the fact that they feel alone.
Right.
So we try to make sure we touch our guys every day, make sure that they don't feel alone, make sure that they know that they have someone that they can talk to, and someone that's willing to listen to them, and that sees them as a person, and won't judge them for whatever it is they're going through.
Right, right. I love that, Coach. And in a basketball team, it's such a team environment. That's what I love about our game. And one thing you do also with your team a great job of is getting to play defense together. Coach, can you talk a little bit about your defense? I know you guys guard with multiple efforts, and how does it start? You guys are just starting your summer program. Do you set the tone right now for what will happen in the fall?
Yeah, absolutely. I think right now the most important thing for us to do is talk about terminology.
Hmm.
Talked about what, not only what, talk about how, and talk about when. So we have to build to that. What is it to play Texas State defense, and and how to go about doing that. And then we talk a little about the when and do what, and the why we do this, why we're successful at it. So right now we're basically talking about, we're starting this thing off with defensive positioning.
Hmm.
Certainly we want to deny the middle at all costs. Obviously, that's something that a lot of teams want to do, and not many are
Yeah.
successful at it. But
Right.
our defense is predicated on forcing everything to go to the baseline, and the reason why our defense is predicated on that, because that's where we teach rotations.
Right.
And most of the time, you have to find out what you're going to live with. And there's so many talented players in the game right now, and they're being taught how to operate in tight spaces and make plays, draw the kick, and things of that nature. So we have to really funnel the ball one way, so we can it can be make it a bit easier for us to coach our rotations. And we want to make sure that we understand ball pressure, and what does that look like.
Hmm.
Naturally we want to hawk the ball, get into it, make you uncomfortable. So we want to talk about, what does that look like at Texas State? I don't know what it looks like anywhere else.
Right.
And then we have a simple three things that we always say. Now, what are we trying to do?
Hmm.
We want to, on closeouts, we want to eliminate space. So you want to close out, you want to eliminate space on the drive, you want to eliminate angles. well, excuse me, on the closeout, you want to eliminate sight so they can't make that shot. And then you want
Hmm.
to eliminate angles on the drive and space on the pickup. So when we talk about those things, our guys know exactly what it is we're talking about. So right now, defensive positioning, we're talking about being in the passing lane. What does one pass away look like?
Hmm.
You know, where are you supposed to be? Why is it that your elbow's in the passing lane as opposed to your hand, and why is it that your hand is in the passing lane opposed to your elbow? So stuff like that, and then we're going to get to our shell, which is I think one of the best parts of our defense when all
Yep.
five guys are working together as one.
Right, right. And coach, what is it one pass away that you like? Were you talking about your elbow and your hand in the passing lane? Are you guys more gap or are you more deny when you're one pass away?
We're definitely denied.
Hmm.
Definitely deny. But we did something a little bit different this year. We
Hmm.
we and I didn't early on. I didn't think that we were going to be able to do it. We tried to do it the year before last, but we weren't very successful at it. But in speaking with one of my friends at VCU, he convinced me to put in a gap package. So we have a gap package,
Okay.
and it is such of a package where we will go to in the middle of a possession.
Mm.
So we'll be in the full out deny,
Yep.
and if there's a talented guard in the ISO situation, especially late clock, we're shrinking the floor and we're going straight gap
Right.
um,
Right.
to to force him to drive and kick and move the ball. And we're trying to show our numbers, and it's helped us win a few games this year for sure.
Absolutely, coach. And I've seen that. I love that. And how you guys check into that. Obviously, it takes a lot of communication. How hard is it getting guys to communicate at the level you want them to so all five guys are on the same page? Because your teams seem to do a very good job with that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've been able to do in the past is just you know talk about the success that the women's volleyball team has had here.
Hmm.
A lot of times when we talk about communication, we say volleyball level communication.
Wow.
You can listen to a Coach Chisholm coach team or Sean Hewitt coach team, and you hear them communicating constantly. And you look up in the rafters and you see banner after banner after banner. They don't ever stop
Yeah.
communicating. They communicate constantly. Also, we show YouTube video of guys being mic'd up and how important it is for guys to communicate. When your favorite player is doing it, why can't you do it? And then the other half is, one of our former women's basketball coaches here, who does our color analyst, Coach Suzanne Fox. She told me last year, she grabbed me by my arm. And I said, I just cannot get these guys to communicate. And she said, Coach TJ, she said, throughout my years of doing this job, one thing I found to be true is you get what you emphasize every day.
Right.
So we started emphasizing
Like that.
things like that every single day. So now we have almost like a reward system for communication. It's one of those things to where we celebrate guys communicating, and guys are, we talked about how important that is. We call it connecting.
Yep.
So guys taking opportunities to connect with one
I
another.
love that, coach. And can you talk a little bit about that reward system for connectivity? Do you just praise them verbally, or is it something you give them a shout out after practice, or how do you reward them?
Yeah, the good thing about it is it's a board that we have
Okay.
where it talks about these are not necessarily the pillars. I mean, this is not necessarily the foundation, but yet the pillars of the program, the foundation of the program is health, as we talked about earlier,
Hmm.
mental, physical, and emotional health. But the pillars of the program, which is built upon the foundation, it's energy and effort. You know, so that's one of them right there. We talk about competing and being tough,
Hmm.
and then the other one is connecting and in communication.
Right.
So the connecting and teamwork. That kind of stuff right there. Teamwork, communication. It's all wrapped into one. Connecting. So if let's just say Coach Miller is caught, you know, really, back screen T, you know, you know, down screen, let me through, let me through, let me through. If you're constantly talking like that throughout a possession, and then one of the coaches will yell out, "Hey, put Coach Miller at one for connecting."
Mm. Yes. Yes.
Hey, put Coach Miller up, put Coach Miller up too for energy and effort.
Yep.
So it's verbal praise
Right.
because you're not just going quietly walking it over there. We want it to be we want it to echo throughout the gym.
Right.
So and then at the end we tally that up for the week, and then you'll be a big three winner, and it's the NCAA, so we can't give them a whole lot of gifts, but they get snacks and
Sure.
Powerade things,
Sure.
candy in their locker, whatever it is that they like, little Debbie's and all of that kind of stuff.
I love that, Coach. I love that, and you're getting them to talk by giving them praise. A lot of times, I know as coaches, it's easy for us to complain that our players aren't talking, but you're finding solutions there, and I like that with the board, with the praise. And Coach Miller would be talking if I was in practice, Coach. I'd be one of those guys talking. I'd be in there.
I
I
know
like
you
that.
would be. I know.
I like that, Coach. I got to go back to defense. A question for you. So you're sending them to the baseline, so to speak, not allowing middle. That help defender. What do you teach there, Coach? Because that's sometimes a help defender can be in the right spot, but they don't necessarily do the right thing. Is it take a charge? Is it rim protect? Does it depend on who you're guarding, who the person is? How do you teach helpers to help?
Yeah. So for us, it depends on who's there.
Okay.
Certainly
Mm-hmm.
we got a 5'8" point guard. If this guy's going to set it down screen, away from the ball, he's probably going to be in a hole.
Yep.
So I don't want him trying to block a shot.
Right.
Naturally, I want him outside of the charge circle and taking it in the chest. We still take charges here.
Yep.
We do.
Yep.
We're going to compete, and we're going to find ways to win, and I think that'll help you win. But if it's if I'm talking about somebody who I thought was one of the best shot blockers we had here all year was Nigel Caesar, I want him to make a play on that ball.
Right.
I want him to be a rim protector. So one of the biggest things is for us to be able to see the ball, and make decisions, stunt, recover, and try to eliminate dribble penetration as best as we can, try to have multiple eyes on the ball, point, ball you man, making sure that you can see the ball and your man, and be able to stunt and recover. And then if you get beat, you need to hustle and get back in front of the ball, because we don't want to allow ankles. And if we're doing that, then we need to communicate out of that situation by seeing the ball first and the next pass second. I tell these guys all the time, I think the best offensive players are great reactors.
Mm-hmm.
I think the best defensive players are great anticipators.
Mm.
So a
Like
lot
that.
of it is us just anticipating and understanding where we're funneling the ball at and what are the next plays. You're going baseline, you're going to have to dump off right there. You're going to jump stop and play off for two and throw it back out to the replace, or you're going to look for baseline drift. You don't have many more opportunities than that. You should not have a shot.
Right.
I should be on your hips hard enough to where you don't feel like you can get a shot. So we should know our rotations off of that.
I love that, Coach. I love that. And once the ball is kicked out and you guys are rotating, you can sometimes maybe are in a scramble mode and you have effort with late shot clock. Does anything change there? Are you one of the teams that maybe last 10 seconds you're switching things, or does it just stay steady, contest, rebound, and finish the possession?
We try to stay steady.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we try to stay steady. Obviously, if you throw a baseline drift pass, the guy that's usually at the top of the rotation is going to crack down and take away that.
Mm-hmm.
If we could not stop that pass, if the
Right.
pass actually gets there, he's going to take that. Next thing you know, the guy out the hole is probably going to take the wing if the
Right.
ball goes there for the next pass, and then we're gonna settle into where we're at and
Right.
play out of that. And then if that guy that closes out has a mismatch, and you think that he's probably likely to get beat, then we're probably going right into gap,
Right.
right into our gap defense.
Right. I like that, Coach. What about ball screen coverage? Are you somebody who teaches a lot of different coverages and goes games to game, or do you have like an ABC coverage? How do you teach ball screen coverage, Coach? Because you guys do a great job with that.
Yeah, we got to do better at it,
Mm-hmm.
but we try to hard hedge almost everything.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously on the sideline, at times you'll see us ice. Haven't been
Mm-hmm.
done. We haven't been great at that, and it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to get really really good at that because we're so locked in on hard hedging.
You're right.
To whereas sometimes if the ball is in the sweet spot, and what I mean by the sweet spot, not in the slot, but not on the side, we're trying to
Hmm.
figure out what we're trying to do.
Right.
So usually that really just depends on the big. The big makes the call,
Hmm.
and we have to stick with the call. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to hard hedge ball screens. We're trying to make it hard for guys to handle it, see it,
Yep.
and make plays out of it. And we're trying to shrink the court. We're
Right.
trying to give you the throwback to throw in, and we're trying to hustle there, close out there, tag. So we're trying to get a hard hedge. We're trying to get a tag. We're trying to get a whole guy.
Mm.
So I agree with Coach Sampson. He said a long time ago it takes five guys to guard a ball screen,
Right.
and that's how we're trying to do it. Um, for a true side ball screen, you might see us ice. You might see us ice. What you don't see us do too much is go under, and sometimes that does hurt us. Especially, I think we played a 91 last year, and they set a lot of high ball screens, and we have to adjust and just kind of go under because we want to pressure the ball, and they're setting ball screens almost at half court, and we're going
Hmm.
over it. So
Right.
we started dropping coverage a little bit.
Sure. Little
uh,
drop coverage.
yeah,
Yep.
dropping coverage a little
Yep.
bit, and not so much. You know, it's on a game to game basis.
Right.
You know, um, but we haven't put together a blitz package. We may call that out of a timeout, as a
Hmm.
surprise, but we don't do that very often.
Right.
We don't practice that, so we don't really do that too often. But we're a hard hedge team. We
Yep.
want hands up. We want guys, taking two dribbles close to half court. We want to tag and we want to stunt.
Right. Right. I like that, Coach. Yeah, it's five guys, like you said, to make that happen, and you have one thing you're really good at with the hedge, and then you can do a little adjusting from game to game. Can I ask, Coach, going back to terminology, it's so important that everyone's speaking the same language. Obviously, you as the head coach knows all the terminology, but for it to permeate through your staff, but most importantly, your players know all the terminology. How do you teach everything? Do you give a playbook, a handout, or is it just kind of a little bit verbal and build it up each day?
Yeah, we don't give a playbook.
Hmm.
Yeah, we don't give a playbook. What we do, I mean, sometimes our practices can get a little wordy. So our practice plan can be a little wordy, but we put emphasis on here, and we kind of highlight and underline things, terminology that we want the coaches to talk about.
Hmm.
So we want everybody speaking the same language. My first collegiate job, I worked for Jimmy Tillett, uh, who coached at Sanford University in Birmingham, Alabama, and he
Right.
ran Princeton. And I could just remember how difficult it was for me to understand. I thought I knew a little bit about basketball. I don't know a whole lot now, but I thought I knew a little bit then. And I found out that I knew absolutely nothing. Um, but I didn't give myself enough credit. What I did not know is I did not know the terminology.
Mm.
And I think if you don't know the terminology, then you don't know. You would never know the play. You won't know the coverage. It's
Right.
things you don't know when you don't understand the terminology. So it's important that our coaches, when given the opportunity to teach and to reteach and the things of that nature, speak the terminology.
Yep.
Use the terms in which we use. Terms
Right.
like reverse pivot, turn and run, how to get from one spot to the next. Terms like closing out, like how do we close out, cut guys off at the pass, so things of that nature. So that terminology has been passed on years and years from in my early years here.
Yep. Yep. I like that, Coach. Everybody has to be speaking the same language. So important terminology. Can you talk us through just a little bit about practice? Practice obviously is so important that it transfers to gameplay, and you guys run a great practice there. I've seen it live myself. How do you plan practice with in mind, your next opponent or this time of year? Do you plan practice just a little bit each day, building up your system? I know planning practice is so important, and then just talking a little bit about what goes into a Texas State practice.
Yeah, right now we have three things that we want to work on
Hmm.
defensively, and three things that we want to get better at offensively.
Okay.
And and we're going to build around that. How can we get one day better at this throughout the whole summer. So, and we're planning practice around that every single day. Um, so we have a skeleton of practice throughout the week, and then we kind of make some tweaks to it, add some points of emphasis to it, add some more terminology to it, and then construct an order in which it has a pretty decent flow.
Okay.
One thing that I'm learning, and I that I'm hoping I can continue to get better at, is the flow of practice. Like I'll tell Benny, I was like, man, it was good for the first hour, and then after that, it just went straight to crap. And we look at something like, oh, okay, we had an extended period right there where we did a lot of teaching. In this generation, you have to kind of mix up short
Yep.
opportunities to teach and then get back into the flow of it. And if you have an extended teaching segment, you have to be strategic about where you put that throughout your practice so it doesn't disrupt the flow. So you got to find out whether or not you think it's better to put it at the beginning or is it better to put it at the end. But if you put it at the middle, it can be hit or miss.
Right.
So right now for us, we're building practice around three core defensive principles in which we're looking at, and also three core offensive principles in which we're looking at.
Okay. I like that, Coach. And I noticed too when I was at your practice, I did like the pace, and there weren't the lulls you're talking about the practice I was at. But I know exactly what you're saying. Sometimes if we're talking too long in the middle on something we teach, we got to keep it moving. So planning that practice is so important. I like what you did. One of the practices I was at, you started right away with a competition. I think it was team Mike and drill, and it was team one against team two, and it got the energy going right from the jump. Do you sometimes do things intentionally just to get that energy lifted right from the jump of your practice?
Yeah, if we're trying to do some things early on in practice and it just seems like it's slow, I'll blow it dead and I'll just go full court one on ones.
Mm.
Just to kind of
Yep.
get guys going, get guys competing, get them lathered up. And I'll go 4 on 4 cutthroat right there.
Love it.
Just blow it all day. Whatever was on the practice plan, just scrap it, and then we'll work backwards from that. But for me, the goal is to incorporate some level of competition in practice every single day.
Yep.
Something that gets the best out of you and the best out of me.
Right.
So um,
Winners, losers. Yep. I like
Absolutely,
that.
absolutely.
Yep.
So we try to establish a winners win type of mentality and culture here, and whatever it is, we want to compete at it. So yeah, definitely, the competition component is going to be there every single day in practice.
Yep. I love that, Coach. And I could feel it at the practices I was at. Question for you, Coach. Is there
Mhm.
a percentage that you work on in typical practice? I know it varies in the summer, but maybe more in season offense versus defense, or does it just vary? Or, could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, usually it's usually for us going to start out about 70-30.
Hmm.
To be honest with you,
Defense, 70% defense and 30% offense.
70% defense.
Yep.
One of my transfers, he stepped out of practice today. He did some cramping,
Hmm.
and he came back into practice. Said, "Did I miss anything?" And then we just talked about some defense. And he said, "Did we put in any plays? Did we run any plays?" It's like, nah, we won't be running any plays this summer. So
Right.
one thing you won't do is miss plays
You're
this
good
summer.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but we'll teach them how to play a little bit, but we're not putting in any plays, not one.
Right.
We won't be putting in any secondary breaks. We'll teach them how to play. And what I mean by that, we're going to go over spacing.
Hmm.
We're gonna do some driving kicks. Teach them angles on ball screens. And things of that nature. We're gonna teach them how to read screens. Down
Hmm.
screens. When to fade it. How to time up a flare. Things of that nature. How to anticipate a slip. All of that kind of stuff. So we'll do that stuff. But right now. The focus is going to be on defense about 70% of the time. And but as we get closer into the season, obviously, it's going to be the goal is to get to a 50-50 split. That's always the goal.
Right. Right. That makes perfect sense, Coach. Um, Question for you on offense. Do You said you're not working on plays in secondary now, and you're teaching. I love that, teaching them how to play, because that's what it's all about. How important in the college game is playing off 2 feet? Do you do things to, we're working at that obviously at the high school level, but I know in college when you get in traffic or in a crowd, playing off 2 feet is strong. Do you do a lot of things to teach them to play off 2 feet? And then also with that, freshmen coming in, do they struggle with that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's one of the. I think it's one of the most important things for young people to learn how to play off 2 feet. I think oftentimes, guys don't watch basketball per se, especially don't watch college basketball.
Right.
So they'll watch pro, and seldomly are you watching anybody play off 2 feet in pro, especially if they didn't, if Jay Wright wasn't their college coach. You know,
Right. Right.
so it's a huge thing for Villanova players to play off of 2 feet,
Yeah.
and the way they've been way they've been taught over the years about how to make sound decisions and play off of 2 feet like that is something that I'm trying to adopt and trying to make part of our daily regimen and culture here. I do think that high school players tend to struggle at it. A lot of times, you guys have so many people that you're kind of watching out for. That it's not something you have a whole lot of time to kind of rep and to teach. So you almost say, hey, it would be you almost suggest it, and say,
Hmm.
hey, you play off 2 feet right there,
Hmm.
which is hard because some of them are just, you know, 4 years removed away from learning how to make a left hand layup, and
Right.
they're not taught to do that jumping off 2 feet.
Right.
So we use terminology like, man, finish high and strong, and then that's playing off of two, and then we might say something like finish low and long, and that's playing off of one.
Hmm.
I do think that there's times where you can play off of one. I think it's harder in the
Yep.
collegiate game because the game is over scouted. So guys know, like, listen, you can take a charge on this guy. He's always jumping in the air. You can get over and cut him off. So that's why we teach our guys to play off of two and be able to use their step throughs and their spins and things of that nature.
Right. Right. And that goes with that terminology and emphasis you're talking about, Coach. I like that a lot. What about roles, Coach? How buying into a role is so important. I know when everyone steps on campus, they want to be the man. And I know you talk about that in your recruiting process. I'm sure roles for every player. How do you do that with guys? Are there some one-on-ones maybe where you see them in the fall and talk to them about where you're at now and then later in the season? And what do you do with players sometimes who are struggling with their role?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think early on, guys tend to struggle with their role,
Hmm.
but we create buy-in. And how do
Hmm.
we do that? We evaluate, pretty extensively, and then we document and we talk to guys throughout the course of it all. What their shooting percentages are like during the off season, what their shooting percentages are like during the preseason. So we're recording all of that data, we're statting all of that stuff, and then for the most part, you'll see our guys. You walk into our locker room, you look to the right as you walk in. Each one of those guys have a scouting report on our team, and at the top of the page it said, "What is your role to help us win?"
Mm.
So that's something that we talk. We have a roundtable discussion with that particular player and the coaching staff. The coaching staff has put together some things that we think could really kind of help this young man, be the best that he can be, which in turn will help us be the best that we can be.
Right.
If he's a really good defender, certainly we want him to hawk the ball, make teams uncomfortable, and put relentless ball pressure on the ball consistently. If he's a good if he's a good shooter, we want him to get to his shots, hands and feet ready. If he needs to be a better playmaker, better decision maker, then we want him to play off of two and see the pass, make the pass, and be a ball mover, not a ball stopper. And then
Right.
at the end of that conversation might be six things or so. And then we ask him, "Hey, John Doe, how do you feel about this? Is it something you agree with? Do you think you can do more, do less? Do you see any reason why you can't be successful doing these things? And do you see any reason why we can't be successful if you do these things?" And
Right.
then and most of the time, Coach Miller, they're doing the same thing you're doing. They're shaking their head, yes, like, yes, Coach, you got my game down to a T. This is who I am. This is what I do.
Right. Right.
and they sign a contract saying that they agree on that. So usually guys don't struggle with their role here very often.
Right.
At the end of the day, they know what it is because it's plastered all over the locker room.
Yep.
They know what it is. And their teammates know what it is.
I love that, Coach. And I saw that in your locker room. Can you talk about that roundtable? Is it all your coaching staff and then the players? They come in, meeting room, talk about it, and you go over that scouting report on that player with them?
Yeah, so for about 3 days right before the season, because we don't do this until the end of preseason.
Okay. Yep.
We want to do it, 2 weeks before the first game.
Yep.
Right around the time of our first scrimmage. You know, uh, and we're going to sit down with the whole coaching staff and that one player for about 30 minutes or so, going over all of these things. You know, and basically, if they want to pull some things that they think that they can be better at or think that they can do, then we'll add that. But we always tell them um, that you are agreeing to be your best self every day, then this is what this looks like. So, but yeah, it's been something that we've done for 2 years, and I think that has worked. I can remember a very talented player that we've had here. His father called after a conference game. The kid had just been named, player of the week, the week prior to, and his father called. He said, he just didn't have a good week this week, but I guess he did what you needed him to do last week. He said, man, I think he's lost, and I think I'm lost. I just don't know what's his role on the team. I said, really? I said, you don't yeah, have you spoken with your son?
Hmm.
Like, yeah, but he doesn't know his role. I said, really? I said, I'll tell you what. I'll get an email sent to you. I said, we don't do this very often at all. We don't share this with anybody,
Right.
but I'll share it with you. So I sent him the breakdown of the young man's role, and I also took a picture, uh, basically showing him that everyone has this up in the locker room, so
Right.
he can see his role. Not only can he see his role, he can see everybody's role on the team.
Right.
So I haven't had any questions about
Right.
what's my role.
That's great stuff. I like that a lot, Coach. And be clear, be upfront. Here's your role, and keep improving, working on your weaknesses. Maybe your role changes a little bit throughout the season, but I love that, Coach. That's good stuff. Point guard play, Coach. I know you're getting a very good point guard in 2023 that we're excited about. What goes into point guard play for you to see a successful point guard? What do you want from your point guard?
Yeah, I first of all, we're getting an unbelievable person
Mm-hmm.
in 2023. First,
Yes, you
you
are.
know, I want my point guard to be an extension of me. I want him to be someone that has the quiet kind of confidence that young man has, and
Mm-hmm.
also the quiet confidence that a guy like Mason Harrell has.
Mm-hmm.
Or a guy like Marlon Davis had. So we've had the pleasure of having some pretty good point guards here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Obviously, we want them to be tough. We want them to be ball tough,
Yep.
and also tough defensively. We want them to be tone setters, and we want them to have leadership qualities.
Right.
Be comfortable being uncomfortable. Be fine with being pushed and being held accountable. So, but most of all, I think what you want your point guard to be is a gym rat.
Hmm.
A guy
Right.
a guy that wants to be in the gym and wants to get better every day. Because you can be all of those things, but if your teammates don't see you doing that kind of stuff, they won't respect you. They won't follow you.
Yep.
So we're looking for a guy that loves the game of basketball and has a passion for it, and doesn't mind showing it.
Yep.
So I think that obviously for us it's the most important position on our team, and it starts and it ends with that person.
Right. Right. I like that, Coach, and I know you have one coming, and you've had some good ones. Coach, can I ask about recruiting? When you go out and recruit, what are some characteristics besides just being a heck of a basketball player to play Division I? So I know that already eliminates a lot of people. But when there are still a lot of Division I talent in our state and throughout our country, what do you look for when you're looking for Bobcats?
Yeah, we don't we try not to. We try not to guess.
Mm.
I'm gonna be honest with you. It was tough recruiting. Um, via Synergy or Baller TV or anything like that, live streams. But we made out okay. I thought we did a
Mhm.
pretty good job with the class that we brought in last year.
Mhm.
Had some guys that fit, and had some guys that may or may not have. But for the most part, we did a stellar job with the type of people that we brought in. You know,
Yep.
you still got guys developing in their skill sets and developing their basketball IQs. But for us, if you don't mind, I'm gonna cheat a little bit. I got it on my wall. It just stays up there the
Yep.
whole time. And each one of my coaches, they have a printout of it. And I think I usually started off with 1A and then get guys I can coach.
Mm.
Um, I can't coach everybody.
Right.
So, and basically, that's not about the young man. It's more so about the assistants. The assistants have to find out how can they identify the type of guys that I can coach, and
Mhm.
and so that's on them. You got to do your homework. Find
Right.
somebody that can coach. The last thing you want to do is bring your head coach someone he does not think that he can coach.
Yep.
The second thing is character. We got to find guys with character. Sometimes I don't get to bed till about 2 o'clock. The last thing I want to do is wake up at 2:30. Dealing with somebody that doesn't have any character, that's
Yep.
doing something that he does not that's not indicative of the culture, or the family that has raised them. So, character is a huge thing. Like, who are you when nobody's looking?
Right.
So that's super important. Toughness. You got to get tough guys, mentally, emotionally, physically tough guys that can endure. We don't want any brats. We don't want guys that go kicking and screaming when things that don't go their way. We don't want guys
Mhm.
to bring that kind of level of attention to themselves because they mental midgets and can't deal with adversity.
Mhm.
So, and we also don't want guys to back down from a challenge or a fight.
Yep.
Like, that's not who we are. That's not what we're about to do. We're not gonna run away from everything. We're gonna walk to everything.
Right.
And skill and feel. I got to have guys that have a skill in the field because, you know, one of the best things I think about this program, we've been in the top, last 5 years, except for this past year. This past year we were second, but previous five we were number one defensive team in the conference, and this year we were second. But although we were second this year, we were number one in offense,
Mhm.
field goal percentage, 3-point field goal percentage, and free throw field goal percentage. Um, just because we're a good defensive team, it doesn't mean we can't play offense.
Right.
And I think that you got to have the right skill and feel, intelligence to understand when to do what. Work ethic, you got to have the right work ethic. You got to love the gym. Impact and winning. You got to be a good teammate. Academics is huge with me. Like,
Mhm.
you got to be able to give academic effort. I'm not saying you got to be a 4.8 student, but you have to be able to give academic
Effort.
effort.
Yep.
And, communicator. Got to communicate, and you got to be coachable. And you got to that's maturity, being coachable.
Right.
Understanding that this is not personal, that this is passion.
Right.
That's what you hear coming out of my mouth. It's just passion.
Right.
And then the last couple is durability and passion. You got to be durable.
Yep.
A lot of times guys, they spend more time on the sideline than they do on the court. To me, that's the quickest way for me to move on and check. And I'm checking out.
Right.
Like, you got to figure out a way how to get yourself on the court. The best ability is availability. If you're
Yep.
not available, hey, I'm not rushing you to come back. You should be doing every single thing in your power to come back.
Yep.
And then the last part is passion. You got to have a love for the game. So those are the things that I don't waver on those things.
Yep. Yep. And your assistants are working hard to identify those guys, and then you come in. I like that, coach, and you have a team I see full of that. I know you're getting another 2023 that fits those descriptions. Coach, just a couple more. This has been wonderful talking to you basketball, talking Bobcat basketball with you. I just wanted to ask about the transfer portal, not take a deep dive into it, but Obviously, each year it seems to change a little bit more, and then NIL. How much through your time now in college basketball have you seen change because of the transfer portal, and has it changed at all the way you recruit with high school kids? Maybe you need them to recruit early, or can you just talk about transfer portal with Texas State?
Yeah, if we're talking about transfer portal with Texas State, this is for us, it's a new thing. We don't typically recruit the transfer portal very heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, we recruited Nate Lacewell throughout the transfer portal, and he was our second transfer we had got here. The first one being Jalen Shed, Jamal Shed's older
Yep.
brother.
Yep.
So we don't really recruit the transfer portal like that. This year, we were forced into recruit the transfer portal because we had some late transfers situations, and I thought the JUCO basketball just didn't present anyone at the time that I thought could fill the void. So we went into the transfer portal. I think at the end of the day, um, I think we are in a state of uncertainty
Mm-hmm.
whether or not the transfer portal is something that's positive for basketball. I understand what the NCAA and what the courts were trying to do. I understand both sides of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason that we're in this situation right now is because the NCAA had too much control, and then after that, the court saw fit that the NCAA shouldn't have any control. So I think the most obvious thing is that you need a middle ground. Like, what does that look like? Some kind of parameters or some type of guidelines to where how both parties can benefit from it, and we can have the kind of structure to where guys can you know find ways to stick with things that may not be going their way at that time, but see the process for what it is, and
Sure.
that's something that you have to see through. At the same time, there are some young men that are not, in some not so good situations for them, and they should have the liberty to
Opportunity.
move around and an opportunity to find something that does fit them. So I think in a couple of years it'll settle itself down just a tad bit, and then guys will start understanding how important it is to find a good fit from the start. Um, for us, we've been extremely selective about it.
Yep.
For us, the transfer portal is a little bit like speed dating, and
Mm.
obviously, from us recruiting your players,
Yep.
we're not quick to offer. You
Right.
know, we don't let the offer do the recruitment.
Right.
We're going to recruit you, and then we're going to offer when we're completely sold on. If you don't get any better from that day forward, you're good enough to play for us.
Mm-hmm.
So once we offer you, we're not evaluating per se your talent. Now we're just reading your character, your decision making, your
Right.
ability to adjust to adverse situations, and so on and so forth. So I'm hopeful that the transfer portal isn't something that we're going to be dipping and diving into every year.
Right.
We're still going to recruit the way we've been recruiting, and that's a mixture of high school and junior college players. And when there's a need, we'll recruit the transfer portal.
Right, right. I like the way you use it, Coach. And I can attest firsthand relationship building. Back to my very first question, that's how I knew it was important, seeing you build a relationship with the guys on our team and our staff and doing your homework on those guys. It turned out good. And I love the way you did that, Coach. Relationships so important. Last question, Coach, about the city of San Marcos. Living here now just about a year, I absolutely love this city. I know you do too. You have a river outside your arena that kids can go out and enjoy. It's so neat. I think it's one of the best places, maybe the best place in Texas. Can you talk about the importance of community in Texas State and just San Marcos community?
Yeah, I come from a very small knit community. My mother's from New Orleans, and my dad's from right outside of New Orleans, a place called Saint Bernard Parish.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it took a village to raise us. And when I say us, my mom had, seven kids. So,
Mm-hmm.
the whole community raised us. But it was one of those things to whereas everybody had the other person's best interest in mind at heart. You have people that I've never known my grandmother to drive a car. But if she couldn't get a ride to church, if no one was available to drive her to church, she can just go stand out on the highway, and somebody was going that way was going to bring her. And they
Okay.
couldn't bring her all the way there, bring me halfway there. Somebody else is going to pick me up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I just think that that's the type of relationships that this place needs to have. And when I say this place, I'm talking this community of San Marcos.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if we're able to build that type of relationship, that type of common unity. And I tell people this all the time: community, those that comes from the root of common unity. If we can find a common unity between this city, this wonderful city of San Marcos, and this great university, and kind of merge the two, so where you guys are developing these young men and these young women, and you're dropping. If you can't get them all the way here, you get them halfway, and then
Mm-hmm.
we come out and we show great support for what it is that the elementary schools, the middle schools, and the high schools are doing in San Marcos, and then we get them all the way here. We pick them up and take them the rest of the way. If we're able to do that, and then put these same young men and young women back into the community, and they'll be able to take their experiences from what they have here, from what they have with you guys, and their education, what they got,
Mm-hmm.
what they have here, and they bring that back to this great city of San Marcos. The sky's the limit. And
Yep.
and if you think it's one of the fastest growing cities now, just wait till what happens when all of us are on one accord and working together.
Right, right. I love it, Coach. It's a great city, and I love that community feel, and I love what you're doing there at Texas State to keep promoting it. So great job. Coach, thank you so much for taking the time tonight on the podcast, dropping knowledge about your defense and so much more. Appreciate it. We look forward to following your success at Texas State.
Big time. I appreciate it, Coach Miller. My success in appreciation for what you're doing there. I can probably count on one hand how many times I've been to a San Marcos game before you got there. And now they know me when I'm walking through the door. So I think you've done a great job there, and I think this community is going to rally behind you and love you the same way that they did at Seven Lakes for all those years. So you're a giant in your own right. So I want to wish you the best, man. Excited to see what you guys are doing this year.
Coach, that's too nice. Thank you so much, Coach. I appreciate you so much.
Indeed,
Okay.
man. I
Have a
appreciate
great
you. As well.
have a great night, Coach.
Yep.
Appreciate it. That's Coach Johnson. Wow, great stuff from Coach Johnson at Texas State. Excellent program. He's just a star in coaching, and it's just going to be fun to watch him to continue to rise and build this program, Texas State. If you like the podcast tonight, please take the time to subscribe on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, it would do us a giant favor hitting that subscribe button. And if you're following on Twitter, hit that follow button and go ahead and follow Basketball and Brew. We appreciate that so much and your support of the podcast. Speaking of podcasts, next week we have another great coach coming on, Andre Cook, head coach of St. Edward's. Excellent program, excellent coach. Really looking forward to talking St. Edward's basketball with Coach Cook next week. I'd like to thank our producer, Jude McLaren, for putting this on, and then our sponsors, Pie Society, great pizza, great time, beer, spirits right here in San Marcos, Zelix Ice House, excellent time. Go to Zelix, hit their happy hour up, have a great time. Thank you again for watching Basketball